You wake up every morning carrying the weight of a secret exhaustion, not the kind that sleep can cure, but the bone-deep weariness that comes from searching everywhere except the one place where the answer has always been waiting. You have prayed to the heavens, begged for signs from above, and wondered why your deepest calls seem to echo back unanswered. Yet something inside you refuses to give up hope, something that whispers there must be more to this existence than what meets the eye. What if I told you that every single day, 7 unmistakable signs reveal themselves to you, proving beyond any doubt that the divine presence you seek is not in some distant realm, but alive and moving within the very core of your being? What if the God you have been calling out to has been answering you all along, speaking through a language so intimate and personal that you mistook it for coincidence, intuition, or simple chance? Today, you will discover that you are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being temporarily housed in human form, and the divine consciousness that created the stars and planets flows through every thought you think, every breath you take, every decision you make. This is not philosophy or wishful thinking. This is the fundamental truth of your existence, and once you recognize these 7 daily signs, you will never again feel alone or abandoned in this world. The transformation waiting for you is not small. It is the difference between living as a beggar, hoping for scraps of meaning, and walking as the inheritor of infinite power and wisdom. It is the shift from seeing yourself as separate from the divine to recognizing yourself as its living expression. Every moment of pain, every unexpected encounter, every quiet knowing that rises from within you carries a message that will change everything you believe about who you are and what is possible in your life. This revelation cannot wait another day. The signs are appearing right now in this very moment, but they require eyes that have been opened to see them. If this message has found its way to you today, it is no accident. It is the first sign that something greater than coincidence is orchestrating your awakening. Join me by subscribing to this channel, because what you are about to discover will require you to see your entire life through new eyes. You will need to return to these truths again and again as you learn to recognize the divine presence that has been walking with you every step of the way. Number 1, the illusion of distance. Where is God really? You have been taught to look up when you pray, to cast your eyes toward heaven, as if the divine presence you seek exists somewhere far beyond the clouds, waiting for your voice to travel through the vast emptiness of space to reach sacred ears. This single belief, planted in your mind since childhood, has created the greatest spiritual tragedy of your existence. It has convinced you that you are separate from the very force that gave you life. Tonight, as you lay your head upon your pillow, you carry the weight of this false separation. You feel abandoned, disconnected, as if God is a distant landlord who occasionally checks on his property but remains forever unreachable. This illusion has robbed you of the most profound truth of your existence. It has stolen your birthright and left you begging for what already belongs to you. But what if everything you were taught about divine distance was a lie? What if the God you have been searching for in temples, churches, and sacred books has been closer to you than your own breath this entire time? The truth is this: God is not a being who exists outside of creation, looking down upon it from some celestial throne. God is the very fabric of creation itself, the intelligence that flows through every atom, every thought, every heartbeat. You are not separate from this divine presence any more than a wave is separate from the ocean that birthed it. Picture, if you will, a fish swimming frantically through the depths of the sea, crying out in desperation, searching everywhere for water. The fish asks every creature it meets, "Where can I find water? I am dying of thirst." Yet with every movement, every breath, every moment of its existence, the fish is completely surrounded by, filled with, and sustained by the very thing it seeks. This is your relationship with the divine. You are swimming in an ocean of infinite intelligence, yet you believe yourself to be spiritually parched. Consider the story of a man who spent 40 years of his life savings to travel to every holy site on earth. He climbed the highest mountains, crossed the most treacherous deserts, and knelt before the most sacred altars, always searching for that one place where he might finally encounter God. On his deathbed, exhausted and broken, he whispered to his grandson, "I searched everywhere, but I never found him." The young boy, with the wisdom that only innocence can possess, placed his small hand on his grandfather's chest and said, "But grandfather, didn't you feel your heart beating all these years?" This is the moment your spiritual awakening begins. Not when you find God, but when you realize that God has never been lost. Not when you reach the divine, but when you understand that the divine has been reaching through you every moment of your life. The shift in perception that transforms everything is this: stop looking for God in the extraordinary and start recognizing the divine in the ordinary. Stop seeking sacred experiences and start understanding that existence itself is sacred. The intelligence that orchestrates the perfect timing of your heartbeat, that grows your hair while you sleep, that heals your wounds without your conscious effort, that dreams your dreams and thinks your thoughts, this is not mechanical biology, this is divine intelligence expressing itself as you. When you truly grasp this truth, prayer becomes a conversation with yourself at the deepest level. Miracles become the natural expression of your aligned consciousness. Fear dissolves because you realize you cannot be separated from the source of all strength and wisdom. Here is how you begin to dissolve the illusion. Each morning, before your feet touch the floor, place your hand on your chest and feel your heartbeat. This is not your heart beating. This is God beating in you. Feel your breath, fill your lungs. This is not your breath. This is God breathing you into another day of infinite possibility. Throughout your day, look for the divine intelligence expressing itself in the perfect timing of traffic lights that turn green just as you approach, in the exact person who calls you when you need to hear their voice, in the book that falls open to precisely the page that contains the answer you were seeking. These are not coincidences. These are love letters from the universe, signed by the divine presence that moves within you. You are not a human being searching for God. You are God experiencing what it means to be human, temporarily forgetting your divine nature so that you might remember it with even greater joy and wonder. The distance you feel is not real. It is simply the space between your current awareness and your eternal truth. Close that space and heaven touches earth in the sacred temple of your awakened consciousness. Number 2, the silence that speaks. God's voice is your intuition. You have trained yourself to ignore the most sacred communication system ever created. Every day, a voice whispers guidance so precise, so perfectly timed, so miraculously accurate, that it could only come from infinite intelligence. Yet you have learned to call it a hunch, a feeling, a guess. You have been conditioned to trust everything except the one source of knowledge that never lies, never misleads, and never steers you toward harm. This voice speaks in the space between your thoughts. It arrives without announcement, cuts through confusion with startling clarity, and often contradicts everything your logical mind believes to be true. You feel it in your stomach, recognize it in sudden knowing, and experience it as that inexplicable certainty that something is absolutely right or completely wrong, even when you cannot explain why. How many times have you ignored this inner voice only to discover later that it was trying to save you from disaster? How many opportunities have you missed because you chose to follow the loud demands of fear and logic instead of the quiet whisper of divine guidance? This is not intuition as the world defines it. This is God speaking directly to your soul through the most intimate channel of communication ever established. The divine does not speak through burning bushes or thunderous proclamations. God speaks through the subtle frequency of knowing that rises from the deepest part of your being, bypassing every filter of doubt, every barrier of past conditioning, every wall of learned limitation. Imagine your mind as a vast concert hall filled with the cacophony of 10,000 different instruments, each playing a different song simultaneously. The violins of worry screech their anxious melodies. The drums of urgency pound their desperate rhythms. The horns of other people's opinions blast their discordant demands. In the center of this chaos, almost inaudible beneath the noise, a single flute plays the most beautiful melody ever composed. This flute is your intuition. It plays the song of your highest path, but you can only hear it when you learn to silence everything else. There was once a woman who worked for 20 years in a career that slowly drained the life from her soul. Every morning, a quiet voice whispered, "This is not your path." Every evening, That same voice urged, "There is something else waiting for you." But she chose security over soul calling, logic over inner knowing. One day, sitting in a meeting that felt like spiritual suffocation, the voice became so strong it felt like someone had grabbed her shoulders. "Leave now," it said, "today." Against every rational thought, she walked out of that building and never returned. Within 6 months, she had discovered a calling so aligned with her purpose that work felt like play and abundance flowed like water breaking through a dam. The voice that had whispered for 20 years had been trying to lead her to her destiny. The moment you choose to honor this inner guidance over the shouting of external circumstances, everything in your life begins to align with mysterious precision. Doors open that you never knew existed. People appear who carry exactly what you need. Resources manifest from sources you never considered. This is not magic. This is what happens when you finally start walking in harmony with the divine intelligence that has been trying to orchestrate your highest good since the moment you drew your first breath. Your rational mind will fight this truth with every weapon in its arsenal. It will demand proof, insist on guarantees, and ridicule the very idea that you could receive guidance from a source beyond your logical understanding. But here is what your mind cannot argue with: the track record of this inner voice. When you look back honestly at your life, you will discover that every time you followed this deeper knowing, even when it seemed impossible or irrational, you ended up exactly where you needed to be. The practice of listening to divine guidance begins with creating space for silence in your life. Not the silence of an empty room, but the silence of a quiet mind. Each day, give yourself at least 10 minutes of complete stillness. Sit without agenda, without trying to solve anything, without asking for anything. Simply be present to the space between your thoughts. In this space, divine intelligence speaks. When facing any decision, large or small, ask this question not with your mind, but with your heart. What would love have me do? Then listen. Not for words, but for the feeling of rightness that settles into your being like warm sunlight. This feeling, this knowing, this inexplicable certainty, this is God guiding you through the most direct channel available to the human soul. Trust this guidance even when it contradicts everything your experience tells you should be true. Trust it especially when it contradicts what others expect of you. For in learning to follow the voice that speaks in silence, you discover that you are never walking alone. You are being guided by infinite intelligence toward a destiny more magnificent than anything your limited human vision could ever design. The voice you learn to trust is not your own. It is the voice of God speaking as you, through you, and for you. Number 3, people who arrive right on time, angels without wings. You have been looking for miracles in all the wrong places. You expect divine intervention to arrive with fanfare, accompanied by supernatural phenomena and unmistakable signs from heaven. Meanwhile, God has been working through the most ordinary, most overlooked, most perfectly disguised messengers imaginable. The people who cross your path at precisely the moment you need them most. Think back to the pivotal moments of your life, the times when you stood at crossroads, drowning in confusion, or teetering on the edge of a decision that would change everything. In how many of those moments did someone appear, seemingly out of nowhere, carrying exactly the words you needed to hear, the perspective you couldn't see, or the encouragement that kept you moving forward? You called it coincidence, you labeled it luck, but coincidence is just God's way of remaining anonymous. These are not random encounters. These are divine appointments, orchestrated with precision that would make the greatest conductor weep with envy. The universe has been moving people like chess pieces across the board of your existence, positioning them to arrive at the exact second when their presence could transform your trajectory. Consider how this unfolds. A woman sits alone in a coffee shop, her resignation letter written but unsigned, wrestling with whether to leave a toxic job that pays well. A stranger at the next table, talking on his phone, says, "I know it's scary, but staying in the wrong place is scarier than stepping into the unknown." Those words, spoken to someone else entirely, become the divine permission she needed to sign that letter and step into her new life. A man drives through a thunderstorm, his marriage hanging by a thread, believing that love is dead and commitment is a prison. His car breaks down, and the mechanic who arrives to help shares the story of how he and his wife nearly divorced after 20 years, only to discover that the crisis was preparing them for the deepest love of their lives. That mechanic was not randomly assigned to that call. He was sent. This is how God moves in the world, not through burning bushes or parting seas, but through ordinary people who carry extraordinary timing. The cashier who smiles at you on the day you feel invisible. The child who asks an innocent question that shatters years of self-deception. The elderly person who shares a story that contains the exact wisdom you've been seeking. The friend who calls at 2 a.m. with an opportunity that changes your life. The stranger who steps in front of you in line and delays you just long enough to avoid the accident that would have claimed your life. These people often have no idea they are being used as instruments of divine intervention. They speak their truth, offer their help, or share their story simply because something moves them to do so. They may never know that their words became a lifeline. Their action became a miracle. Their presence became the answer to a prayer they never heard spoken. The moment you begin to recognize these divine appointments, your entire relationship with humanity changes. You stop seeing people as obstacles, interruptions, or annoyances. You start seeing them as potential messengers, carrying pieces of the puzzle you need to solve, fragments of the wisdom you need to grow, or simply the love you need to remember that you are not alone in this journey. But here is the profound reciprocal truth. Just as others are being sent to you, you are being sent to others. That impulse you feel to speak to a stranger, to reach out to an old friend, to share your story with someone who seems to need it, that is not your impulse. That is divine intelligence, using you as an instrument of intervention in someone else's life. How do you begin to recognize and honor these sacred encounters? First, pay attention to the people who appear repeatedly in your life, especially during times of transition or crisis. Notice the conversations that happen with unusual ease, the strangers who feel familiar, the encounters that seem too perfectly timed to be accidental. Second, when you feel moved to speak to someone, to help someone, or to share something with someone, trust that impulse. You may be the answer to a prayer you know nothing about. You may be carrying the exact words that will save someone from despair or illuminate their path forward. Third, approach every encounter with the awareness that this person may have been sent to you or you to them. Listen not just to their words, but for the deeper message their presence brings. Sometimes the messenger is more important than the message. When you live with this awareness, loneliness becomes impossible. You realize you are part of a vast network of souls, all being moved by the same divine intelligence, all serving as agents of grace in each other's lives. The person sitting next to you on the airplane, the colleague who invites you to lunch, the neighbor who needs help with groceries, these are not random encounters. These are appointments scheduled by infinite wisdom, designed to deliver exactly what is needed precisely when it is needed most. You are never walking alone, and you are never without purpose. In every interaction, you have the opportunity to be either the recipient or the deliverer of divine intervention. The question is not whether God is working through people in your life. The question is whether you are awake enough to recognize the angels without wings who have been sent to guide you home. Number 4, your scars speak. God is in your transformed pain. Your deepest wounds have become your greatest lies. You have convinced yourself that pain is proof of God's absence, that suffering means you have been abandoned, that the moments when life brought you to your knees were evidence that the universe had turned its back on you. But what if the opposite is true? What if those shattering moments, those unbearable seasons, those experiences that nearly destroyed you were actually the times when God was working most intimately in your life? You carry within your body, your heart, and your soul the sacred scars of divine transformation. Every place where you have been broken and healed is a place where God's fingerprints remain forever embedded in your being. Your pain was not random suffering, it was purposeful sculpting. You were not being punished, you were being prepared. Look at your life through the lens of truth rather than the fog of victimhood. The betrayal that taught you to trust your own intuition instead of false promises. The loss that opened your heart to depths of compassion you never knew existed. The failure that stripped away everything except what truly mattered. The illness that showed you the preciousness of each breath. The abandonment that forced you to discover your own strength. These were not accidents. These were appointments with your highest becoming. The divine works like a master sculptor, and you are the marble. Every strike of the chisel feels like destruction, but each blow is carefully calculated to reveal the masterpiece hidden within the stone. You cannot see the final form while the work is in progress. All you feel is the impact, the pieces falling away, the rough edges being smoothed. But the sculptor sees what you will become, and every apparent wound is actually the removal of everything that is not your truest self. Consider the story of a woman whose world collapsed in a single day. Her husband left, her business failed, and her health crisis emerged, all within the span of 48 hours. For months, she raged at God, convinced that life had become her enemy. She felt cursed, abandoned, singled out for suffering. But 3 years later, she stood as a healer, counselor, and guide to thousands of others walking through their own dark valleys. The betrayal had taught her discernment. The financial loss had freed her from the prison of security and forced her to discover gifts she never knew she possessed. The health crisis had awakened a spiritual awareness that transformed not just her body, but her entire understanding of what it means to be alive. Every wound had become a window through which divine light now poured into the world. This is the sacred alchemy of spiritual transformation. God takes what was meant to destroy you and converts it into the very foundation of your strength. What was intended to diminish you becomes the source of your expansion. The places where you were broken become the places where light enters and flows out to touch others who are walking through their own breaking. But here is the truth that changes everything. You are not the victim of your pain. You are the beneficiary of it. Every scar tells a story not of destruction but of survival, not of defeat but of triumph, not of God's absence but of God's most intimate presence during your most desperate hours. The shift that transforms your entire relationship with suffering is this: stop asking why it happened and start asking what it created. Stop focusing on what was taken from you and start recognizing what was given to you. Stop identifying with the wound and start identifying with the strength that grew from it. Your scars are not marks of shame. They are badges of honor. They are proof that you have been tested by fire and emerged as gold. They are evidence that divine intelligence knew you were strong enough to handle what would refine you, wise enough to learn what it came to teach, and resilient enough to be transformed rather than destroyed by it. Now, when you encounter others who are walking through their own valleys of shadow, you do not offer them empty platitudes or false comfort. You offer them the living proof that pain has purpose, that wounds can heal, that what feels like an ending can become the most beautiful beginning. Your scars give you the authority to speak hope into despair, because you know firsthand that destruction is often just reconstruction wearing a terrifying mask. Here is how you begin to honor the sacred work that was accomplished through your pain. Thank your struggles for the gifts they brought you. Write a letter to your younger self who was walking through the fire, and tell that frightened, broken version of yourself what they could not have known then, that they were not being punished, but prepared, not destroyed, but refined. Look at the ways your pain has made you more compassionate, more wise, more authentic, more awake. Recognize how your deepest wounds have become your greatest sources of strength. See how your scars have become sacred sites where others can find hope when their own lives seem hopeless. You are not broken. You have been broken open. You are not damaged goods. You are a living testament to the power of divine transformation. Your pain was not meaningless suffering. It was meaningful preparation for a purpose so profound that it required you to be forged in fire before you could fulfill it. God was not absent during your darkest hours. God was most present, working with infinite patience to transform you into the person who could handle the magnificence of your true calling. Your scars are not evidence of abandonment. They are evidence of the most intimate love imaginable, a love that was willing to let you hurt in order to help you heal at levels you never knew were possible. Number 5, coincidences that aren't coincidences. The language of God. You have been receiving divine messages your entire life, but you have dismissed them as meaningless patterns, random occurrences, and strange coincidences. You see the same numbers appearing everywhere you look, but you call it coincidence. You hear the same phrase from 3 different people in one day, but you call it chance. You encounter the same symbols, the same situations, the same inexplicable repetitions, but you have trained yourself to ignore the most sophisticated communication system ever created. God does not speak in words carved in stone or voices booming from the heavens. The divine communicates through the language of synchronicity, speaking in symbols, patterns, and perfectly timed repetitions that bypass your logical mind and speak directly to your soul. This is a language older than human speech, more precise than any earthly communication, and more personal than any conversation you have ever had. The universe is not chaotic. It is not random. It is not a collection of meaningless events spinning without purpose through empty space. The universe is a living, breathing, conscious entity that speaks continuously to those who have learned to listen. Every repeated pattern, every meaningful coincidence, every synchronistic event is a word in an ongoing conversation between infinite intelligence and your awakening consciousness. When you begin to see the same number sequences following you everywhere on clocks, license plates, receipts, and addresses, you are not losing your mind. You are finding your connection. When the same book title keeps appearing in different contexts, when strangers keep bringing up the same topic, when the same opportunities keep presenting themselves in different forms, you are receiving guidance from a source that knows your path better than you do. Think of these patterns as breadcrumbs left by divine intelligence, leading you through the forest of infinite possibilities toward your highest destiny. Each repetition is confirmation that you are moving in the right direction. Each meaningful coincidence is validation that you are aligned with a force greater than your individual will. Consider the man who kept seeing eagles everywhere he went, not just in nature, but in artwork, on billboards, in conversations, in books that fell open to pictures of eagles. For months, he dismissed these as meaningless coincidences. Then he discovered that his great-grandfather, whom he had never known, had been a member of the Eagle clan in his native tribe and had been a spiritual leader who guided people through times of transition and awakening. The eagle was not a random symbol. It was an ancestral calling, a spiritual inheritance, a message from generations past that his time of awakening had arrived. This is how the divine works through the ordinary, to deliver the extraordinary. God takes the common elements of your daily experience and arranges them into patterns so specific, so personal, so perfectly timed that they could only be messages from infinite intelligence. But here is the key that unlocks this divine communication. The more aligned you become with your true purpose, the more clearly you receive these messages. The more you quiet the noise of worry and distraction, the more obviously the patterns reveal themselves. The more you trust the guidance you are receiving, the more guidance you receive. These synchronicities increase in frequency and intensity as you approach major transitions, important decisions, or quantum leaps in your spiritual evolution. They are like a divine GPS system, constantly recalculating your route based on your current position and guiding you toward your ultimate destination through the path of least resistance and highest joy. When you start honoring these patterns instead of dismissing them, something magical happens. You begin to live in partnership with the universe. Decisions become easier because you receive clear signs about which direction to choose. Opportunities become more obvious because they arrive wrapped in the symbols you have learned to recognize. Life begins to flow with an ease and grace that feels almost supernatural, but is actually the most natural way to live when you are in harmony with divine intelligence. The shift that changes everything is this. Stop labeling these experiences as coincidences and start recognizing them as conversations. Stop dismissing the patterns and start studying them. Stop ignoring the repetitions and start asking what they mean. Here is how you begin to decode the divine language. Pay attention to anything that appears 3 or more times in a short period. Notice the topics that keep coming up in different contexts. Observe the symbols, numbers, animals, or objects that seem to follow you. Write them down. Look for themes. Ask yourself what message these patterns might be trying to convey. When you see these synchronicities, do not just notice them, respond to them. If you keep seeing information about a particular place, research it. If you keep encountering the same spiritual concept, study it. If you keep meeting people who share a common interest, explore that interest. The patterns are not just meant to be observed, they are meant to be followed. Trust that the intelligence guiding these synchronicities knows more about your path than your logical mind could ever comprehend. These patterns are not random entertainment from a bored universe. They are precise guidance from infinite wisdom, designed to lead you step by step toward the fulfillment of your highest purpose. When you learn to read the divine language of meaningful coincidences, you discover that you are not navigating life alone. You are in constant communication with a force that sees all possibilities, knows all outcomes, and loves you enough to guide you through the complex maze of human existence toward your most magnificent destiny. The universe is not silent. It has been speaking to you all along. The question is not whether God is communicating with you. The question is whether you are finally ready to learn the language. Number 6, gratitude that illuminates. When you thank, God shows up. You have been taught that gratitude is polite spiritual behavior, a nice practice that makes you a better person and helps you appreciate what you have. But this understanding barely scratches the surface of what gratitude actually is and what it actually does. True gratitude is not an emotion, it is not a feeling, it is not even an attitude. Gratitude is a frequency, a vibration, a spiritual technology that instantly aligns you with divine intelligence and opens channels of perception that remain closed to the ungrateful heart. When you truly thank life for what is, you do something profound to your consciousness. You shift from the frequency of lack to the frequency of abundance, from the vibration of victimhood to the vibration of empowerment, from the energy of separation to the energy of connection. In that shift, you become visible to forces and possibilities that were always present but previously invisible to your awareness. Most people practice gratitude as a mental exercise, making lists of things they should appreciate while their hearts remain closed and their spirits remain disconnected. But authentic gratitude is not about thinking thankful thoughts. It is about feeling the full depth of wonder and appreciation for the absolute miracle of existence itself. It is about being overwhelmed by the recognition that you are surrounded by gifts so profound, so perfectly orchestrated, so impossibly beautiful that no amount of thankfulness could ever be adequate. This kind of gratitude does not depend on circumstances. It does not wait for good times to be grateful for good times. It finds the divine gift hidden within every experience, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones. It recognizes that every breath is borrowed, every heartbeat is a grace, every moment of consciousness is a privilege that could end without warning but continues because of forces beyond your control or understanding. When you live from this depth of appreciation, something extraordinary happens. The universe begins to respond to your thankfulness by giving you more to be thankful for. Not because God rewards good behavior, but because gratitude literally opens your perception to abundance that was always surrounding you, but was invisible to eyes clouded by complaint, comparison, and dissatisfaction. There was a woman who lost everything in a natural disaster. Her home, her possessions, her business, her sense of security, all swept away in a single afternoon. As she stood in the ruins of her former life, something inexplicable happened. Instead of despair, she felt overwhelmed by gratitude that she and her family had survived. Instead of focusing on what was gone, she became acutely aware of what remained: the love between her and her husband, the laughter of her children, the kindness of strangers offering help, the beauty of sunrise over the destruction, the opportunity to rebuild not just her external life, but her understanding of what truly mattered. This gratitude was not denial or positive thinking. It was a recognition of profound truth. Within 6 months, opportunities flowed toward her with such abundance and perfect timing that her new life became more fulfilling, more purposeful, and more joyful than anything she had lost. The disaster had not been a punishment, it had been a clearing away of everything that was not essential, so that everything essential could flourish. This is the miraculous power of authentic gratitude. It does not change what is, it changes your relationship with what is. And when your relationship with reality changes, reality itself begins to respond differently to your presence in it. But here is the secret that transforms gratitude from a practice into a way of being. Start thanking life for things before they happen. Thank the universe for opportunities that are on their way to you. Thank divine intelligence for solutions that have not yet appeared. Thank God for healing that is in process, for love that is approaching, for abundance that is already moving toward you through invisible channels. This is not wishful thinking or magical fantasy. This is spiritual technology based on the understanding that gratitude aligns you with the creative forces of the universe. When you thank life in advance for what you know is coming, you align yourself with the certainty of divine provision rather than the uncertainty of human worry. The practice begins simply but transforms everything. Each morning before your day begins, spend time feeling genuine appreciation for three things. Not thinking about them, but feeling the warm glow of thankfulness fill your chest as you focus on each one. One thing from your past that shaped you in a positive way. One thing in your present that brings you joy or peace. One thing in your future that you are excited to experience. Then, throughout your day, look for evidence of divine generosity. The parking space that opens just as you arrive. The smile from a stranger that brightens your moment. The unexpected solution that appears when you need it most. The perfect temperature of your morning coffee. The fact that your body continues to function without your conscious effort. Thank life for each gift as you recognize it. When challenges arise, practice the most advanced form of gratitude, thanking the difficulty for what it is here to teach you, to strengthen in you, or to develop within you. This does not mean being grateful for harmful situations, but being grateful for your capacity to grow through whatever life presents. As you develop this practice, you will discover that gratitude is not something you do, it becomes something you are. You become a person who naturally recognizes gifts, who instinctively appreciates beauty, who automatically acknowledges abundance. This shift in your fundamental frequency changes everything about how life responds to your presence. When you live in authentic gratitude, you stop waiting for life to give you reasons to be happy. You start giving life reasons to shower you with blessings. You stop demanding that circumstances change to suit your preferences. You start discovering that circumstances respond to your appreciation by becoming more and more worthy of your appreciation. This is not spiritual theory. This is practical magic. When you thank life, life thanks you back by revealing more of its hidden treasures. When you appreciate what is becomes more appreciable. When you acknowledge the divine gifts that surround you, those gifts multiply in ways that defy logical explanation but confirm spiritual truth. Gratitude is not what you practice when life is good. Gratitude is what transforms life into good. It is the master key that unlocks every door, the universal frequency that harmonizes with all blessings, the spiritual gravity that draws miracles into your everyday experience. When you truly thank, God truly shows up, not as a reward for your thankfulness, but as a recognition of your readiness to receive what has been waiting for you all along. Number 7, perfect timing. God moves without a clock, but is never late. Your greatest suffering comes not from what you lack, but from your impatience with divine timing. You have convinced yourself that delay means denial, that waiting means abandonment, that if something does not happen according to your timeline, it must not be meant to happen at all. But this impatience with the universe's perfect scheduling has caused you to miss the profound intelligence behind every apparent delay, every closed door, every detour that frustrates your human urgency. You live in a world obsessed with instant gratification, where everything is expected to arrive on demand, where speed is valued above wisdom, where the microwave mentality has infected even your relationship with the divine. You pray for healing and expect it by morning. You ask for opportunities and demand they appear by afternoon. You seek love and grow angry when it does not arrive by evening. But God operates on a timeline that takes into account variables you cannot see, consequences you cannot imagine, and preparations you cannot fathom. Divine timing is not slow. It is thorough, it is not delayed, it is deliberate. When you understand this truth, your entire relationship with waiting transforms from torture into trust, from frustration into faith, from impatience into the deepest peace you have ever known. Every moment of apparent delay is actually a moment of divine preparation. While you are waiting for your answer is being prepared to meet you. While you are growing impatient for your opportunity is being arranged with precision that would astound you if you could see the intricate orchestration taking place behind the scenes of your visible reality. Think of divine timing like a master chef preparing a feast. You stand outside the kitchen, hungry and impatient, demanding to know when dinner will be ready. But inside the kitchen, ingredients are being carefully selected, preparations are proceeding in precise order, flavors are being developed that cannot be rushed, and timing is being coordinated so that every element reaches perfection simultaneously. The meal is not late. It is being prepared with such meticulous attention to excellence that when it finally arrives, it exceeds every expectation. Consider the man who spent 10 years building a business that failed spectacularly, just as it seemed on the verge of massive success. He felt betrayed by God, convinced that his prayers had been ignored and his efforts wasted. 2 years later, the exact skills he had developed in that failed business became the foundation for an opportunity he could never have imagined, an opportunity that required precisely the knowledge, contacts, and resilience he had gained through what felt like failure. The 10-year delay was not punishment, it was preparation. The business failure was not the end of his story. It was the necessary education for the next chapter. This is how divine intelligence works in time. What appears to be a detour is actually the most direct route to your ultimate destination. What feels like a setback is actually a setup for something far greater than what you originally requested. What seems like denial is actually divine protection from settling for less than what infinite wisdom knows you are capable of receiving. The moments when you feel most abandoned by divine timing are often the moments when the most important work is being done. While you wait for external circumstances to change, internal transformations are taking place. While you wait for your situation to improve, your character is being strengthened. While you wait for your dreams to manifest, your capacity to handle those dreams is being expanded. But here is the profound truth that changes everything about how you experience waiting. God's timing is always perfect, because God's timing takes into account not just what you want, but what you need. Not just what would make you happy in the moment, but what will serve your highest good for eternity. Not just what looks right from your limited perspective, but what is right from the perspective of infinite wisdom. The shift that transforms waiting from agony into anticipation is this. Stop measuring divine timing against human clocks and start trusting that infinite intelligence has access to information you do not possess. Stop demanding that your timeline be honored and start asking how you can use this time to prepare for what is coming. Every season of waiting is a season of becoming. Use the time to develop skills you will need for the next level. Use the delay to heal wounds that would sabotage your success if left unhealed. Use the apparent inactivity to gain clarity about what you truly want versus what you think you should want. When you align yourself with divine timing instead of fighting it, you discover that the universe has a rhythm, and when you learn to move with that rhythm instead of against it, life becomes a dance instead of a struggle. You stop pushing doors that are not ready to open and start noticing the doors that are swinging wide with divine invitation. Here is how you begin to trust divine timing. When something you want is delayed, ask not, "Why is this taking so long?" but "What is this delay preparing me for?" When an opportunity passes you by, ask not, "Why did I miss my chance?" but "What better opportunity is this making room for?" When you feel stuck in waiting, ask not, "When will this end?" but "What is trying to emerge through this experience?" Practice patience as a spiritual discipline, not passive resignation, but active trust in intelligence greater than your own. Celebrate small progress instead of demanding dramatic breakthroughs. Thank the universe for working on your behalf even when you cannot see the evidence of that work. Most importantly, stop trying to force divine timing to conform to human urgency. The universe is not behind schedule. You are simply learning to tell time by a different clock, the clock of infinite wisdom that measures not minutes and hours, but readiness and ripeness, not speed, but perfection. When what you have been waiting for finally arrives, you will understand why it could not have come sooner. You will see how every delay protected you from receiving what you wanted before you were ready to handle it wisely. You will recognize how every detour led you through experiences that prepared you for success you could not have sustained without that preparation. Divine timing is not about God making you wait. Divine timing is about God making sure that when your moment comes, you are ready not just to receive your blessing, but to steward it, multiply it, and use it to bless others. Perfect timing is not about perfect speed. Perfect timing is about perfect preparation, meeting perfect opportunity at the perfect moment to create perfect results that serve not just your good, but the good of all. Number 8. You are the miracle. God lives in your transformation. You have spent your entire life searching for proof of God's existence in external miracles, waiting for supernatural events that would confirm divine presence in your world. You have looked for God in burning bushes, parting seas, and dramatic interventions that defy natural law. Meanwhile, the greatest miracle of all has been unfolding quietly within you, so close to your experience that you have completely overlooked it, so much a part of your daily reality that you have forgotten to recognize it as extraordinary. The miracle is not that God exists somewhere out in the universe. The miracle is that God exists as you, expresses through you, and lives as your very consciousness moment by moment. Every thought you think, every choice you make toward love instead of fear, every act of courage in the face of uncertainty, every moment of compassion when you could choose indifference, these are not human achievements. These are divine expressions moving through human form. You are not a separate being trying to connect with God. You are God experiencing what it means to be human, temporarily forgetting your divine nature so that you can remember it with the joy of discovery. Your spiritual journey is not about finding God. Your spiritual journey is about remembering who you are and recognizing that the seeker and the sought have always been one. Look honestly at the person you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Look at the fears you have overcome, the wisdom you have gained, the love you have learned to give and receive. Look at the way painful experiences have transformed you rather than destroyed you. Look at how challenges have strengthened you rather than weakened you. Look at how darkness has taught you to appreciate light, how loss has taught you to treasure what remains, how difficulties have revealed inner resources you never knew you possessed. This transformation did not happen by accident. This growth did not occur through mere human effort. This evolution from who you were to who you are becoming is the clearest evidence of divine intelligence working intimately in your life. God does not live in temples made of stone. God lives in the temple of your ever-expanding consciousness. Every time you choose love when anger would be easier, every time you choose hope when despair seems more logical, every time you choose to see possibility when evidence suggests limitation, in those moments, you are not acting from human nature. You are allowing divine nature to express itself through your human experience. Consider the mother who finds supernatural strength to lift a car off her trapped child. Consider the person who survives impossible circumstances through inexplicable resilience. Consider the individual who forgives the unforgivable and in doing so experiences freedom that defies all understanding. These are not anomalies. These are glimpses of the divine power that lives within every human being, waiting to be awakened, activated, and expressed. But you do not need to wait for extreme circumstances to witness this divine presence within you. It expresses itself in ordinary moments when you listen to someone with genuine compassion, when you speak truth in situations where lies would be more convenient, when you act with integrity, even when no one is watching, when you choose to see the best in people, when their worst is on display. The miracle you are seeking is not going to arrive from outside your experience. It is going to emerge from within your consciousness as you remember what you have always been and stop pretending to be less than your divine nature. You are not a human being who occasionally has spiritual experiences. You are a spiritual being who is temporarily having a human experience. This recognition changes everything about how you see yourself and how you move through the world. You stop looking for God in external phenomena and start recognizing God as the very awareness through which you perceive all phenomena. You stop waiting for divine intervention and start understanding that you are divine intervention in the lives of everyone you encounter. When you truly grasp this truth, prayer becomes communion with your deepest self, meditation becomes a return to your natural state, service becomes the natural expression of recognizing yourself in all life. Love becomes not something you do, but something you are. The transformation that has been taking place within you throughout your life is not finished. It is accelerating. Every challenge you face, every choice you make, every moment of awareness is an opportunity for the divine within you to emerge more fully, express more completely, and experience itself more consciously through your unique human form. But here is the ultimate recognition. You cannot earn this divine nature through good behavior or lose it through mistakes. You cannot achieve it through spiritual practices or forfeit it through human failures. It is what you are, have always been, and will always be. The spiritual journey is simply the process of removing everything that obscures this truth until only truth remains. Start living from this recognition. Stop apologizing for taking up space in a world that needs exactly what you bring to it. Stop diminishing yourself to make others comfortable with their own unrecognized magnificence. Stop hiding your light under the bushel of false humility or societal conditioning. You are here not by accident, but by divine appointment. Your consciousness, your gifts, your unique perspective, your capacity for love and wisdom and creation, these are not random biological phenomena. These are divine attributes expressing themselves through the magnificent vehicle of your human experience. When you walk through the world, knowing that God walks as you, speaks as you, loves as you, and sees through your eyes, every interaction becomes sacred. Every word becomes a prayer. Every action becomes a blessing. Every breath becomes a celebration of the infinite expressing itself in finite form. The miracle you have been waiting for is not coming. The miracle you have been waiting for is here, has always been here, will always be here. You are not waiting for God to show up in your life. You are God showing up as your life. This is not metaphor. This is not philosophy. This is the fundamental truth of existence. You are the living miracle you have been seeking. When you remember this, when you live from this knowing, when you express from this consciousness, you become the evidence of divine presence that others are seeking. You become the proof that God is real, not because you point to something outside yourself, but because you embody the divine so completely that others remember their own divine nature simply by being in your presence. You are the miracle. You have always been the miracle. The only question that remains is whether you are ready to stop hiding this truth from yourself and the world and start living as the magnificent expression of divine consciousness that you truly are. As you move forward from this moment, you carry within you a new way of seeing that cannot be unseen, a new way of knowing that cannot be unknown. The 7 signs we have explored together are not destinations you visit once and leave behind. They are living realities that deepen with your attention, expand with your awareness, and multiply with your recognition. Tomorrow morning, when you wake, you will not be the same person who began this journey of understanding. The divine consciousness that flows through you has been stirred, awakened, called into greater expression. You will notice what you never noticed before. You will feel what you never felt before. You will recognize what you never recognized before. This is not the end of discovery. This is the beginning of living discovery. Think of yourself as a prism that has just been turned toward the light. What was once clear glass now reveals the full spectrum of divine presence that was always there, always flowing through, but never before revealed in its magnificent complexity. Each day forward becomes an opportunity to discover new colors in this spectrum, new dimensions of divine expression moving through your ordinary moments. The signs do not stop appearing because you have learned to see them. They multiply. They become more intricate, more personal, more undeniably woven into the fabric of your daily existence. God does not speak to you 7 times and then fall silent. God speaks to you 7,000 times, 7 million times, in ways that grow more intimate and more obvious as your spiritual vision clears. You are walking now not as someone seeking God, but as someone in whom God seeks expression. Every breath you take is a prayer being breathed. Every choice you make is divine intelligence choosing through you. Every moment of awareness is consciousness knowing itself more completely through your unique experience of being alive. Subscribe to this journey of continuous revelation, because what you have discovered today is only the first glimpse of an infinite recognition that unfolds throughout a lifetime of awakened living. You are not watching your life from the outside anymore. You are living it from the inside, where God has always been waiting to be found. The divine within you recognizes the divine within all things. This recognition changes everything, and it never stops changing everything. What you are becoming has no limit, because what you truly are has no boundary. The signs are everywhere now, because you are everywhere the signs point.